Hey guys, it's Mr. Walker here, recording from the depths of an undisclosed location here at Pasco eSchool. And today we're going to be talking about, you guessed it, place value, right? We're going to continue to build on that knowledge from our previous lessons and expand what we know about place value to further build our math knowledge, right? So in a previous lesson, we kind of expanded in our place value chart up to the millions place, right? So what you guys are going to need for this lesson, again, you're going to need another blank place value chart, which you can download. And you're going to need, dry erase board if you want to put the sheet in there so you can write on it. So what I want you to do first is I want you to take a look at that place value chart and see if you can fill in that blank place value chart again all the way up through the millions, okay? And while you do that, I'm going to draw one up here. All right, so you can see I have my blank place value chart drawn here. So I'm going to go ahead and label it. So I'm going to start here with my ones, right? That's our very first place value that we learned about. Okay, next to the ones is going to be our, you guessed it, that's going to be our tens. Next after the tens, we have our ones, tens, and then this guy's going to be our hundreds, right? Hundreds, I'll write that in there. Okay, after the hundreds, we're going to move on to our thousands. And then we're going to have our 10,000s, right? And next to our 10,000s, we're going to have our 100,000s. And of course, like we learned about in the previous lesson, this place value right here, this is going to be our millions. All right, awesome. And as you can see, I got a few more place values out here. We're going to talk about them in a second. But what I want you to do now is I want you to take a look at this chart and take a look at our ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions. See if you notice any patterns in this place value chart. Do you see anything that's familiar, anything that we have in common, anything that's similar, different, anything like that? Take a second, think about that. Well, what I notice when I'm looking at this is that some of the words repeat, right? So if we look here, I have, let's write right here, I have 100 and 100, right? Here I have a 10 and a 10. So I see some repetitive things happening here. And even here we've got thousands, 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 right? So those are repeating 3 times actually there. Everything else is just kind of once or twice, but definitely some patterns going on here. And if you notice that pattern too, then you're on the right track, because starting with our thousands here, we're going to have some of the same headings kind of repeat as we go bigger and bigger in those numbers. So here we have our thousands, that's kind of like our base unit. And then we have our 10,000s and then our 100,000s. So that's going to start to repeat every time from the thousands on in every unit that we're dealing with. So if we're over here in the millions, what do you think is going to come next? Based on the pattern that we established here, what do you think is going to come next? Well, you're right, that next place value is going to be our 10, right? Just like we had here, our 10 millions place. Okay, so based on that pattern again, we went millions, 10 millions. So what do you think is going to come next? You're right, it's going to be our 100 millions. So 100 million. Okay, so we have these different place values that after the thousands place, they start to repeat the pattern. Okay, whatever our next place value is, we're going to do the 10 and then the hundreds of that, and so on and so forth. We'll go into billions, trillions, right on down the line. So we've noticed that pattern then, and we noticed that there's like kind of like these groups here, right? So these are our thousands. We have our thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. This guy over here is going to be our millions, right? Millions, 10 millions, 100 millions. What's important about these patterns is this is how we can start to group numbers, and we can group them using commas when we start to write some numbers down. For example, if I had 10 million, okay, 10 million, so I'm going to have 10 million, right? I'm going to put a comma, and then I'm going to do my thousands, then I'm going to put another comma, and then I'm going to do my hundreds, my tens, and my ones. So these commas that I put right here, they indicate that grouping of those numbers, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, 100 millions. It indicates what group I'm in, right? Helps us kind of organize our numbers so we don't get these crazy super big numbers and we can't tell how much they're worth glancing at them quickly. Those numbers help us to organize that so we can tell that a little bit better. So let's take a look at a couple more examples real quick. I'm going to write them down here so we can see them a little bit easier. Okay, so I have an example number here, 608430325. Kind of hard to read right off the bat. I don't know where my number groupings are. It's just kind of hard for me to organize. But if I think about my groupings with my place value, and I know that every 3 numbers, there's going to be a comma. Okay, every 3 numbers, there's going to be a comma. I'll kind of overemphasize my comma here. That can help me to organize my numbers. So if I look at this here and I go over 3 numbers, I'm going to put a comma, and then another 3 numbers, and I'm going to put a comma. So looking at this number now, I know that it's 608,430,325. Again, 608 million, because it's in the millions place here. 430,000, because it's in the thousands. And 325 is how I read my last guy there. Okay, let's try that with another one real quick. Let's say, got a lot of 7s in there, but that's cool. All right, so this number here, where would we put the comma in this number? Where would we put the commas? I'll give you a hint. There is going to be more than one. So where would you put those commas in this number? I'll let you try that out real quick. Perfect. So I'm going to look here. I'm going to count over 3 numbers. There's going to be a comma here, another 3 numbers, and then a comma here. So now if I look at this, this is my hundreds grouping here, my hundreds, tens, and ones. This group here is going to be my thousands. And this last guy alone by himself, that's going to be my millions. So if I was going to read this number, I would read it as 7,521,727. So you can see those commas really come in handy for helping us group and read those numbers and understand what kind of numbers we're looking at. All right, we're going to do one more together. Let's say I'm going to write this one in my place value chart so we can kind of see it. So 325. Okay, so we see this number, and now that it's in our place value chart, it should be a little bit easier for us to organize it quickly, right? So we have our hundreds, tens, and ones, so that means I'm going to put a comma right here. And then that's it. I don't have any more groups, right? I have this group of 3, but I don't have to put a comma there because there's nothing else in front of it, so we're good there. So I have this number now, and it can help me to organize my thoughts and to read this number. So we know where the comma is, so how would we read this number? Well, good. We would read this number as 430,000, because that's the place value group that I'm in, 325, okay? 430,325. Because how many thousands do I have? I have 430 thousands, and I have 325. Okay, so you can see how grouping the numbers using commas is going to help us not only be able to understand and know the value of our number quickly by looking at it, but it's also going to help us to read our numbers better as we see them on the page and to be able to put them in word form. All right, now you heard me throwing around a lot of like terms when I was talking about this, right? As far as like I was calling these groups, and we had groups of this and 3 numbers and all that kind of stuff. But there is an actual math vocabulary term that we can use to describe this group of 3 place values when we're talking about a number. So go ahead and cue that vocabulary intro. Math vocabulary. Pretty good stuff, right? Pretty good stuff. So the term that we can use to define a place value grouping of 3 numbers here, like our thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, or millions, 10 millions, 100 millions. The word that we can use to talk about those groupings is called a period. Okay, so a period is what we call the grouping of 3 numbers. So this is a period, this is the thousands period, and then this would be the millions period, and then so on and so forth. Now, I know most commonly the way you probably think of the word period used is at the end of a sentence, right? We write a sentence, we put a period at the end. And it's not quite the same thing. Obviously, we have a different definition here, but you can kind of think of it as like a period ends here, right? This is the thousands period, and stop. This is the millions period, stop. So instead of periods, we're actually using commas. I know it's getting a little tricky here, but our commas define our periods in a number. So again, that's our definition, new definition. You might want to add that to your math glossary somewhere if you have one, or at least in your math binder, math notebook. But a period is a group of 3 numbers for a specific place value. So thousands period, millions period, so on and so forth. So we're going to do a little more practice with this and a little more practice playing with our place value in the next part of our lesson.